Hey, guys! Tonight, we set sail on waters that look calm on the surface. But trust me, you probably won't survive this trip without learning a few dark tricks. Picture yourself standing on the deck of a creaking pirate ship, the sails straining under a restless wind, the horizon smeared with bruised clouds. The sea looks endless, and so does your thirst. There's water everywhere, but you can't drink a single drop without signing your own death warrant. That's the curse of saltwater. So close, so tempting, yet utterly lethal. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and the local time you're listening. I'm always curious who's sailing along with me on these late-night voyages. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. You lean against the ship's railing, the boards sticky with brine, and the first thing you notice is how dry your tongue feels. The sea air steals moisture from your mouth faster than desert wind. You imagine dipping your hands into the rolling waves, scooping them to your lips, and for a moment it feels like salvation. But you hesitate because you've already heard whispers among the crew. Saltwater doesn't save, it kills. The ocean plays a cruel joke. It offers abundance, but hides poison in every shimmering droplet. Drink it raw, and your body turns against you. Instead of quenching your thirst, the salt drags the water out of your cells, leaving you drier with every swallow. You stumble into dizziness, your skin cracking like old rope, your thoughts fogging until madness sets in. Pirates knew this well. Many who broke down and gulped seawater never lasted long. The sky above rolls with thick gray clouds, and you feel the storm's electricity in your teeth. You clutch the railing tighter, and your knuckles glow pale in the lantern light. Thunder rumbles, deep and mocking, like the belly laugh of some sea god watching your suffering. You think about how many desperate sailors once looked up at the same sky, praying for rain, begging for a reprieve. A historical truth anchors itself here. Fresh water wasn't just a convenience. It was the single most valuable cargo aboard any ship. Gold could tempt men to mutiny, but thirst drove them to madness. When barrels of water ran low, even hardened pirates turned savage, guarding their rations like wolves over carcasses. Scholars still argue whether some of the worst sea mutinies were sparked less by greed and more by the sheer agony of thirst. And yet, there's a strange irony. Pirates who lived to plunder often died not from cannon fire or sword fights, but from something as simple as not having a clean sip of water. You picture the galley below deck, damp and dark, the smell of salted meat heavy in the air. The cook stirs a pot with a greasy ladle, his lips cracked, his eyes haunted. Even he knows the food means nothing without something safe to drink. You hear a creak behind you. One of the older sailors, a wiry man in a russet shirt gone stiff with salt, sets down a bucket beside the mast. Inside, the water is murky, tinged green, reeking faintly of swamp. He mutters that it's all we've got left. You gag at the smell, but realize, in that moment, you'd still sip it if you had to. That's the ugly truth of survival at sea. Your standards collapse faster than a rotten plank. And here's a quirky detail. Some pirates tried chewing on leather straps or even soft ropes soaked in water, thinking they could trick their bodies into feeling hydrated. The desperation bordered on absurdity, like gnawing on your boots just to imagine you weren't dying of thirst. The storm breaks overhead with a crack, and for an instant, the rain splatters across your face. You open your mouth, taste the sweetness of fresh water, and it feels like a miracle. The crew erupts into shouts, racing to stretch sailcloths and drag buckets onto the deck. This is what it takes: endless waiting, prayers to uncaring skies, and frantic scrambles for every single drop. You realize, as you watch them work, that this isn't just a fight against hunger or thirst. It's a fight against time itself. Every hour without water chips away at sanity. Every day spent staring at endless blue tests the limits of the human body. And the pirates, for all their swagger and violence, were no different than you. Flesh and blood, clinging desperately to the chance of one more sunrise. The ship lurches, lightning claws across the horizon, and the rain pours harder. You tilt your head back, mouth open, laughing even as thunder drowns the sound. For now, you're alive. But you know this storm is just the beginning. And the sea has more cruel lessons waiting for you. You're still on deck, rain dripping off the edges of your cloak. And though your tongue feels blessedly wet for the first time in days, the question gnaws at you. Why can't you just drink from the endless sea around you? Surely all that shimmering blue must hold some kind of salvation. But the truth is harsher, uglier. And as the older pirate beside you mutters, "The sea don't quench, it curses." You close your eyes and imagine swallowing a full gulp of seawater. For the first second, it feels like relief. Then, the burn comes. The salt doesn't soothe, it scours. Your body rebels almost immediately, the tongue swelling, lips cracking faster than before. Every organ inside you is screaming the same desperate message: reject it. Here's the brutal reality. Your body works like a careful balance of salt and water, blood, sweat. Even tears, each one holds just enough salt to keep your systems running smoothly. But the sea? It holds nearly 4 times as much. Drink it, and suddenly your kidneys can't filter fast enough. They panic, working overtime, dragging water out of your cells to flush the excess salt. Instead of saving you, the seawater turns your very blood into a battlefield. A hard historical fact slips into place. Medieval sailors weren't scientists, but they learned the lesson quick. Ship logs from the Age of Sail mention men who grew delirious after drinking seawater, raving about phantom islands, clawing at their own throats, and finally collapsing in silence. Scholars still argue whether some of the earliest ghost ship tales, like crews found dead at sea with no signs of struggle, were really nothing more than salt poisoning. And there's a strange, almost comedic detail hidden in the misery. Some pirates swore that if you mixed seawater with a little bit of rum, it would become drinkable. Spoiler, it didn't. But that didn't stop desperate men from trying. Imagine it, standing on deck, swirling a cup of brine and rum, convincing yourself you've outsmarted nature. One swallow later, you're doubled over, and the sea has the last laugh. You look down at your own hands gripping the railing, veins pulsing beneath the skin, and it feels like the salt is already inside you. Your head throbs, your throat aches, the horizon tilts with the sway of the ship, and the world blurs. This is what it means to toy with seawater. You walk a razor's edge between thirst and madness. The crew knows it too. You see them watching each other, eyes narrowed. They count who takes how much from the rain barrels, who lingers too long near the casks in the galley. Water isn't just liquid here, it's power. Men have killed for less. You remember the old pirate's warning. Better to starve than sip the sea. And the way he spat into the waves, as though to remind them he still had some choice left. The waves crash harder, spraying your face, and you flinch. For a second, you paste salt on your lips, sharp and stinging. You gag, spitting it back, and it strikes you. This water is all around you, infinite, and yet it's the one thing you can never have. It's like living in a palace of gold, where every coin turns to ash in your hand. Your eyes wander to the barrels lashed near the mast. They're old, stinking of pitch, and you wonder how long the water inside has sat there, souring in the dark. But compared to the sea, that murky liquid is life itself. Men will risk scurvy, rot, and worse, so long as it's not salted. Somewhere deep inside, you understand the cruel poetry of it. The ocean demands respect. It feeds when it wants, kills when it chooses, and taunts you with abundance while holding back the only thing you truly need. And so you stand, dripping, shivering, heart pounding against your ribs, knowing that the ocean isn't just water. It's temptation in liquid form. You whisper it aloud, half to yourself, half to the restless waves. Not one drop. The sea roars back, as if mocking you. Say, and in its foam, you almost see shapes, faces of those who ignored that warning, mouths open wide, still thirsty even in death. You're standing beneath the gray belly of the sky, and for once, the clouds are a blessing, not a threat. A cool drizzle begins to speckle your skin, and you watch the crew snap into action like a flock of gulls spotting fish. They don't waste a heartbeat. In moments, tarred canvas sheets are stretched tight across the deck. Barrels are shoved beneath tilted planks, and even old boots are set out to fill. Every drop is gold. You stretch out your hand and feel the rain gather, a little pool in your palm, clean and fresh. The taste is different, soft, almost sweet compared to the harsh sting of seawater. You lick your lips, savoring the relief, and realize just how fragile survival here really is. Rain isn't just weather, it's mercy. The pirates have perfected 100 tricks for catching it. Some keep lengths of sailcloth treated with fat and wax so water slides neatly into buckets. Others lash funnels made of hammered tin, crude but effective. You see one wiry sailor balancing a ladle on the edge of a barrel, guiding drops like it's some sacred ritual. You almost laugh, but then it hits you. Out here, this is religion. A quick fact surfaces in your mind. On long voyages, even Navy captains recorded rain-catching days in their logs like holy holidays. The heavens opened, one officer once wrote, and the men danced with tongues out like children. That wasn't poetry. That was desperation. You catch an odd sight. One pirate standing shirtless, arms wide, his hairy chest tilted toward the sky. It's the purest drink you'll ever get on the open sea. Still, there are problems. A rainstorm might last an hour, or it might vanish in minutes. You remember hearing that sailors sometimes stored rainwater in charred wooden barrels. The burn meant to kill off mold. But give it time, and even the best caught water grows stale. Tiny worms squirm, a green film rises, and soon you're sipping something closer to swamp broth than salvation. Scholars still argue whether ancient mariners used herbal additives, mint leaves, citrus peels, even sprigs of rosemary to keep rainwater fresh. The evidence is thin, but the stories persist, like whispers of old shipboard secrets. You like the thought of it. Pirates sprinkling rosemary into a barrel like chefs at sea, pretending the slop will taste like home. As the drizzle thickens into a downpour, the crew laughs and hollers, tilting their heads back, mouths wide open. You join them, the cool water washing your salt-caked lips, filling the cracks. For a moment, you feel almost human again. The hunger still gnaws at your belly. The storm still rocks the ship. But with fresh rain sliding down your throat, you forget the misery. And then the rain stops. Just like that, the sky clears to a pale wash of blue. The pirates groan in disappointment, staring at their half-filled barrels. A few squeeze water from their hair into cups, desperate to stretch the gift a little longer. You understand them, because when the rain vanishes, the thirst creeps back almost instantly, like a shadow you can never shake. The sea glitters, mocking you again. But now you know the trick. Patience. You live in a cycle of waiting, hoping the sky opens again. You can almost hear the older pirate's rasping chuckle as he says, "Pray for clouds, lad. Out here, the sun is death." You tilt your head up, scanning the sky, and make a silent pact with yourself. Every drop matters. You'll sip carefully, share grudgingly, and guard your share like treasure. Because out here, rainwater isn't just liquid. It's the line between life and delirium. The sea is restless tonight, and you can feel it in the way the deck rises and falls beneath your bare feet. The wind howls like some great beast, tearing at the sails, rattling the rigging. And you're left clutching a slick rope with both hands. Around you, the pirates are alive with a feverish energy. They're not afraid of the storm. They're hungry for it. It sounds insane, doesn't it? Everyone else dreads thunder and lightning, but pirates secretly pray for it. Because storms don't just bring chaos, they bring buckets of fresh water. And out here, where thirst can gnaw you hollow, a storm isn't just violence, it's bounty. You see it happen as the first sheets of rain slash across the deck. Pirates scurry like rats, flipping lids off barrels, angling broken planks, even tying hollowed-out gourds to the rigging so every drop can be caught. The ship shudders. Waves hammer the hull. But the men grin as water gushes in streams, splattering over them, filling every container within reach. You lean against the mast, soaked to the bone, watching the madness. A memory stirs. It was recorded that Spanish treasure fleets would sometimes deliberately turn broadside to storms, not to fight nature, but to collect as much rainwater as possible. The ships nearly tore apart, but survival made gamblers of every captain. That's how much liquid life mattered. Here's a quirky detail that makes you smirk. Some crews believed storm water was stronger, healthier, because it came with lightning. They'd gulp it down, swearing that thunder shook impurities out of the sky. It's nonsense, of course, but when your tongue is cracked and your lips bleed from thirst, you'll believe in lightning's blessings too. And yet, the danger is always there. A mast splinters nearby with a deafening crack, and a shower of sparks lights the deck. Men scream, scramble, but still they keep working, rain gushing into barrels, buckets overflowing. You can't decide if they're brave or simply mad. Maybe both. The water they save now will last them weeks, if they're careful. But you've already learned the truth. Careful doesn't exist among pirates. They'll drink deep tonight, some mixing the fresh storm water with grog, toasting the sea as though it were their mother. Tomorrow, though, the barrels will be guarded with blades, and you'll see the darker side of thirst. There's a debate you recall, whispered among maritime historians. Did pirates really manage their water with foresight, or were they reckless drinkers who relied too much on luck? Some scholars argue the chaos of storm chasing shows they never planned well. Others insist that rain-collecting rigs found in wreckage prove a methodical survival system. You glance around at the shouting, soaked crew and think, maybe both are true. They're reckless and resourceful. Children of the sea who gamble daily with their lives. As lightning forks across the sky, illuminating their wild grins, you suddenly feel the line between life and death is thinner than you thought. The sea could swallow the ship whole at any moment, yet the men howl in celebration, cupping their hands, gulping rain as if mocking the ocean's cruelty. You taste it too, the storm water, cold and clean, rushing over your tongue. It's like breathing after suffocation. For a brief, dizzy second, you feel invincible, part of the roaring storm itself. The barrels thrum as they fill. The deck becomes a slick river, and you realize this is the paradox of pirate life. Salvation wrapped in disaster, a gift that arrives with a slap. Hours later, when the storm finally limps away, the crew sprawls across the wet deck, panting, soaked and drunk on survival. You lie among them, chest heaving, and stare at the bruised sky fading into dawn. Around you, barrels brim with fresh water, sloshing like treasure chests. The ship still creaks and leaks, but tonight you've beaten thirst, for now. You know the cycle will return. Days of salt and sun, licks cracking again. But this moment, this storm, is a reminder. Even the sea has moods, and sometimes, just sometimes, it gives instead of takes. The sea stretches before you like an endless mirror of salt, taunting you with abundance that you cannot touch. You stand by the railing, tongue dry, lips split, staring down at gallons upon gallons of water you dare not drink. You know the cruel truth. Salt water is poison, and one gulp too many will shrivel your insides. Yet somehow, pirates found ways to bend this deadly sea into something survivable. The first method is almost laughable in its simplicity. You let the sun do the work. You watch as two men drag out a large cauldron, battered black with soot, and set it on the deck. They fill it with seawater, then rig up a curved lid with a pipe running into a smaller flask. It's crude distillation, nothing more than a still. Fire crackles beneath, and soon steam begins to rise, curling into the pipe, condensing into droplets that fall, clear as glass, into the flask. You lean closer, and it feels like witnessing alchemy, the sea's poison turned drinkable, one drop at a time. Pirates would use anything, iron pots, musket barrels, even conch shells, to cobble together makeshift stills. It's slow, painfully so, but life sometimes comes drop by drop. Here's a historical fact that makes you pause. Sailors on long voyages were often issued freshwater rations, but they never lasted. Ships might carry enough for weeks, yet leaks, heat, and rot spoiled the supply fast. That's why distilling seawater became not just a trick, but a necessity. The Royal Navy even tested early distillation methods centuries later, borrowing from the pirates' ingenuity. And then comes the odd, almost absurd detail. You see a pirate lad chewing on a lump of cloth, then wringing it out over his mouth. He had soaked it in seawater, then let it dry under the sun until only salt crystals clung to it. He shakes it, brushes most away, then chews again, swearing it quenches thirst a little. It doesn't, of course, but desperate men will invent hope out of rags. Some scholars still argue whether pirates truly mastered desalination, or merely played at it. Was it reliable science aboard a rolling, leaking deck? Or was it more theater than sustenance? You watch the men tending their still, laughter thin and weary, and you wonder, maybe it wasn't about producing gallons, but about giving hope. Even a small sip of clean water trickling from the pipe meant proof that survival was possible. The sun climbs higher, burning through the haze, and the flask slowly fills. A pirate dips his finger in, tastes it, then roars with joy. He passes it around, each man taking just a mouthful. When the flask reaches you, the water is warm, almost tasteless, but it feels like nectar. You swallow, and your throat unclenches in gratitude. Yet, desalination was not the only trick. Some pirates would fill casks with seawater and leave them half submerged, lashed to the side of the ship. After days of sun and wave, a thin layer of fresher water sometimes floated on top. Skimming it was risky, but it could be done. Looking down, you spot two sailors balancing on ropes, scooping carefully from a floating barrel. They grin, triumphant, dripping ladles of slightly less salty water back onto the deck. It's a delicate dance, one step from survival, one step from madness. You hear the whispers of old tales. Men who thought they could outdrink the sea itself, chugging brine until delirium set in. Some stripped naked and leapt into the waves, chasing mirages. You shiver, gripping the railing tighter, because you know thirst can bend the mind. The still continues its steady work, steam curling, droplets dripping. It's not much, but every drop matters. You glance at the horizon. No storm clouds now, no rain barrels overflowing, only blazing sun and the ship's stubborn refusal to surrender. And in that stubbornness, in the hissing of water turned from salt to life, you hear the heartbeat of pirate survival. You close your eyes, let the warm, distilled water settle in your belly, and feel, for just a fleeting moment, that maybe you'll survive another day. You wander along the deck, sun bouncing off the rolling waves, and notice crates of citrus fruit stacked near the mast. Lemons, limes, and a few oranges glint in the sunlight, their skins pocked and weathered from salt spray. Pirates learned quickly that these little spheres of tang could mean the difference between vitality and scurvy. You pick one up, feeling the dimpled texture, and imagine the power hidden inside. A single wedge of juice could keep teeth from rotting, fingers from swelling, and spirits from breaking. The first trick is preservation. You watch a sailor carefully pierce each lemon with small holes. Then thread a piece of twine through to hang them under the ship's awning. The sun and air do their work, and in days the fruit dries slightly, retaining enough acidity to stave off scurvy. Oddly enough, Pirates would also roll the fruit in coarse salt to extend its shelf life. You can't help but grimace a little. It smells sour, salty, and faintly medicinal all at once. Here's a historical fact that makes your stomach twist. Citrus was considered a miraculous gift during long sea voyages. British sailors during the Napoleonic era and pirates before them credited lemons with saving lives when water ran thin or sickness struck. Some even carried entire barrels of citrus, just for morale, not flavor. You peer into a crate and see bruised golden spheres, tiny orbs of hope amid the vast, merciless ocean. Then comes a quirky detail. One pirate slices open a lime, then sprinkles the juice over a hunk of dried meat. He explains with a lopsided grin that the sour taste makes it feel fresh again. You watch skeptically, but after a bite yourself, you have to admit, it almost works. Acidity kills bacteria, just enough to prevent immediate spoilage. And your taste buds are pleasantly tricked into thinking the meat is tender. Scholars still argue whether pirates truly understood the science or if it was sheer trial and error, passed down from ship to ship. Some insist it was empirical genius. Others claim it was accidental survival. Either way, you witness firsthand how ingenuity can bloom in desperation. Not all tricks are as palatable. You see sailors peeling the thick rinds and grinding them into a coarse powder to mix with dried grains. The flavor is bitter, almost choking. But it slows mold growth. Some pirates even mix in small amounts of vinegar or wine to further preserve food, creating an acidic concoction that keeps flies at bay. You taste a pinch, grimacing at the tang, but nod in grudging respect for the method. Water, too, receives its benefit. A few drops of citrus juice into a flask of seawater, or partially desalinated water, can help mask the brine, making it less gut-wrenching. You watch the pirates sip cautiously, grimacing, then smirk, realizing the taste is still far from pleasant, but far better than death by dehydration. The sun dips slightly, casting long shadows across the deck. You glance at the horizon, and in that golden light, the limes and lemons glow like tiny sentinels. They're not just fruit, they're lifelines. You feel the pulse of pirate survival in their citrus wisdom. Careful, clever, and stubbornly determined to outwit the ocean. Even as waves slap the hull and seagulls wheel above, you understand that these small acidic spheres can carry you farther than courage alone. They are proof that knowledge, however quirky or crude, keeps hope afloat. You wander toward the stern, where large wooden barrels line the deck like silent sentinels. Each is carefully sealed, bound with iron hoops, and filled with a mixture of liquids, grains, and sometimes fish or meat. The pirates call this process barrel aging, a method to extend the shelf life of food and drink while at sea. You crouch beside one, noticing the pungent, earthy aroma of fermenting grain. It's sour, yeasty, and faintly intoxicating. Somehow, this stench feels like safety. Historical fact time: pirates and sailors of the 16th and 17th centuries understood that fermentation was not just for fun. It killed harmful microbes and kept nutrients intact. Ale, beer, and fermented grains could be stored for months without spoiling, unlike plain water, which became foul within days. You peer into a barrel and see the cloudy liquid churning slightly. Tiny bubbles rise to the surface, proof that the natural magic of fermentation is underway. An odd detail strikes you. One pirate sprinkles crushed herbs and berries into a barrel of ale, claiming it improves taste and prevents mold. The combination is visually striking. Deep russet liquid, flecked with indigo and saffron-colored fragments, floating and swirling in slow, hypnotic motion. You can't help but reach out, almost mesmerized by the simple alchemy of it. Scholars still argue whether these techniques were entirely empirical or if superstition guided many practices. Some claim pirates believed the spirits of the sea inhabited the barrels, protecting the food from rot, while others suggest it was meticulous observation passed down over generations. You sip a tiny taste from a ladle, sharp, sour, slightly sweet, and nod in appreciation of centuries-old knowledge embedded in each bubble. You notice that the barrels serve a dual purpose. Not only do they store fermented grains and liquids, but they also house salted meats, pickled fish, and sometimes even fruit. A layer of brine atop the contents forms a natural seal against air and spoilage. Pirates add small weights to keep the brine pressing firmly against the food. You watch a sailor push down a wooden disc and secure it with a rope, an oddly satisfying ritual that balances efficiency and showmanship. One pirate grins at you and opens a small barrel of pickled herring. The smell is pungent, almost shocking, but the taste is brightened by vinegar and a hint of sea salt. It's sour, chewy, and strangely comforting, proof that even the oddest methods can yield edible results. You marvel at the inventiveness. In a world without refrigeration, barrels are the magic boxes of survival. The deck bounces with waves, sending small splashes across the wood. You glance at a barrel labeled lime juice mixture, where the citrus trick meets fermentation. A touch of acidity keeps the liquid from going foul, while the slight fermentation adds flavor and shelf stability. It's a delicate dance of chemistry and intuition, born from desperate necessity. As twilight paints the horizon, you step back and see the pirates methodically tending each barrel. Some stir gently, others adjust the ropes, and a few whisper old chants, half serious, half jest. There's a rhythm to this care, a mix of science, superstition, and survival instinct. Each barrel is more than storage. It's a lifeline, a floating pantry that embodies centuries of maritime knowledge. By the time the sun dips fully below the waves, the barrels seem almost alive. Their contents shifting, bubbling, and glowing faintly in the dying light. You realize that on the high seas, mastery over fermentation and careful barrel aging is the difference between thriving and perishing. Pirates may have been lawless rogues, but their understanding of preservation is nothing short of genius. You move toward the bow, where a smaller crew is hunched over a curious contraption of wood, copper, and coiled tubing. Sunlight glints off the polished metal as you realize you're witnessing a primitive desalination setup. Pirates turning seawater into something drinkable. Brine drips into a separate container, while vapor rises from a small, fire-heated cauldron, condensing along the coils into clear, fresh water. You inhale the salty tang of the evaporating sea, a sharp contrast to the sweet yeasty smell of the barrels behind you. Historical fact: early sailors and pirates experimented with distillation centuries before modern techniques, using heat and condensation to separate salt from water. These methods were risky. Overheating could spoil the water or damage the equipment, but success meant survival during long voyages. You watch a ladle scoop up the condensed liquid, holding it to the light. It glimmers with faint golden highlights, almost magical in the dim afternoon glow. A quirky detail catches your eye. One pirate ties a strip of muslin to the spout, claiming it keeps out the ocean spirits. Whether superstition or a primitive filter, it works surprisingly well, catching small impurities and floating detritus. The cloth flutters in the breeze, almost like a tiny sail dancing above the fresh water. You bend down to taste a drop. Cool, faintly sweet, and shockingly refreshing compared to the briny sea. Scholars still argue whether such desalination techniques were widespread or limited to inventive captains and their apprentices. Some historical records suggest distillation was a rare but well-documented practice among high-ranking pirates, while most crews relied heavily on rainwater collection or careful rationing. You glance at a small barrel marked Rainwater Reserve, noting its strategic placement near the ship's deck, easy to top off during storms. Nearby, a group of pirates demonstrates another clever water trick. They soak linen strips in seawater, then suspend them above barrels so condensation drips into storage vessels below. It's slow, delicate work, but effective. You can't help but admire the combination of ingenuity and patience. Each droplet is a tiny victory against dehydration, a testament to human resourcefulness under extreme conditions. You notice that water storage involves more than ingenuity. Pirates mark levels on barrels, rotate usage, and often mix fresh and slightly salted water to keep the supply palatable and safe. Observing their system, you realize the high seas are a battlefield, not just against enemies, but against the relentless thirst and spoilage that the ocean imposes. Oddly, some pirates flavor their distilled water with seaweed, berries, or a splash of fermented ale to mask the faint metallic taste. The resulting concoction is surprisingly drinkable and even enjoyable, though you can't help but wrinkle your nose at the first sip. Yet, this quirky addition reminds you that survival at sea is as much about morale as it is about chemistry. As the sun sinks lower, casting gilded rays across the deck, you step back and watch the pirates move with practiced precision. One adjusts a coil, another checks a barrel, a third records measurements on parchment. There's rhythm, almost choreography in the way they manage both water and food. You realize that survival at sea isn't just luck. It's a combination of careful observation, inherited knowledge, and occasionally clever superstition. By evening, the desalination system hums quietly. Barrels are neatly secured, and the crew prepares for the night. You sip one last taste of distilled water, marveling at the delicate balance of heat, condensation, and human ingenuity that makes it possible. Out here, on endless blue horizons, these small victories, barrels that don't spoil, water that's drinkable, mean life. You follow the scent of smoke and salt to the ship's aft, where pirates are hunched over racks of hanging fish and meat. The salty tang is overwhelming, mixing with the brine that drips from wooden barrels, each piece rubbed with coarse salt and pressed tightly together to squeeze out moisture. The goal is clear: preventing spoilage in an environment where ice is rare and refrigeration non-existent. Historical fact: salting and drying were the primary methods for preserving meat and fish at sea during the golden age of piracy. Pirates often used coarse sea salt, layering it carefully between fillets to extend shelf life for weeks or even months. You watch a pirate tapping a cured fish with a knuckle, listening to its hollow sound as an informal freshness check, and marvel at the skill required to maintain edible provisions over long voyages. A quirky detail draws your eye. A small black cat weaves between the legs of the crew, apparently inspecting the meat like a feline food critic. Every time a pirate reaches for a slab of salted cod, the cat mews impatiently, as if to approve or reject the selection. The crew laughs and shoo it away, but the cat returns every few minutes, a silent furry supervisor of food quality. Scholars still argue whether pirates relied more on empirical knowledge or superstition in these preservation techniques. Some accounts suggest certain captains had codified methods, while others depended on seafaring intuition or even rituals invoking Neptune to bless the food. You spot a small charm tied to one of the meat racks, swaying in the wind, a tiny reminder that belief and practice were often intertwined. Nearby, another method is in play: smoking. Thin planks of wood smolder over a low fire, filling the space with aromatic smoke that laces the salted meat. You bend close and inhale. The aroma is almost comforting, like a medieval version of a modern smokehouse. The smoke not only flavors the meat, but also acts as a mild preservative, deterring insects and slowing bacterial growth. You can imagine the crew's reliance on this smoky scent as a tactile signal that the food is properly treated. You notice that each type of meat receives slightly different treatment. Pork is salted and left to cure in barrels. Fish is often split, eviscerated, and pressed in layers with salt. Beef is lean and rubbed with salt, and sometimes vinegar or herbs. There's a rhythm to the process, a choreography perfected over years at sea. As the sun dips below the horizon, painting the deck in soft gold and russet hues, the pirates continue their meticulous work. Smoke curls lazily toward the sky, mingling with the sea mist. The rhythmic tapping of fish, the occasional hiss of sizzling brine, and the low hum of conversation create a sense of calm efficiency, almost soothing against the otherwise harsh environment. You step back, observing the result: neatly salted and smoked meat, barrels brimming with preserved fish, and a crew that has turned necessity into a refined art. The combination of salt, smoke, and superstition keeps the ship fed and the crew alive, transforming the brutal sea into a stage for human ingenuity. Each carefully treated slab is more than food. It's a testament to survival, patience, and creativity under duress. You wander along the narrow deck corridor, passing rows of wooden barrels secured with thick ropes. Each barrel is carefully labeled, a testament to the pirates' obsession with order in the chaotic life at sea. The contents range from salted meat to dried fish, from hardtack biscuits to beans and peas. You notice the subtle differences in barrel construction. Some reinforced with iron hoops, others with tightly fitted wooden staves, all designed to withstand the rolling and pitching of the ship. Historical fact: Pirates often stored perishable goods in barrels because the tight seal and slight pressure from the staves helped prevent moisture and pests from ruining the contents. These barrels could last months at sea if properly cured and rotated. You watch a pirate tapping a barrel with a mallet, listening for any hollow notes that might indicate spoilage or air pockets. Each thump is a test. A signal of survival for the crew who depend entirely on these containers for nourishment. A tiny carved figure of a mermaid is affixed to one barrel. Superstitious yet charming, the mermaid seems to gaze over the food, as if guarding it against Neptune's wrath or hungry rats. The pirates wink at each other when passing it, half believing, half joking, that the charm somehow wards off misfortune. Scholars still argue whether such charms were widespread or isolated incidents of superstition. Some argue they were psychological tools to bolster morale and maintain ritualistic discipline around food handling. You notice subtle signs of rotation in the barrels. Older goods move toward the top for consumption, fresher supplies below. This careful rotation ensures that nothing spoils unnoticed, reducing the risk of starvation during long voyages. You lean closer to examine the labels. They are etched with chalk or carved initials, indicating not only contents, but sometimes the date the goods were stowed. A mix of numbers, letters, and crude symbols forms a code known only to the crew. Each barrel is a puzzle, a microcosm of organization, in an environment defined by unpredictability. The rotation process is meticulous. Barrels containing salted pork are swapped with those holding smoked fish. Hardtack moves from storage to the galley. Beans and legumes are checked for dampness. Even minor lapses, a barrel placed in direct sun on deck or a seal left loose, could lead to spoilage and sickness. You notice one pirate inspecting a barrel top, pressing the wood with a knuckle, a silent ritual that combines instinct with learned skill. Some barrels have additional protective layers, straw, cloth, or even a sprinkling of sand to absorb moisture. These layers act as buffers against the motion of the ship and the fluctuating humidity that can wreak havoc on stored provisions. You watch the crew adjust these layers, tucking and smoothing, ensuring the barrels are snug, stable, and ready for the unpredictable sea. The sun glances off the gilded edges of the barrels, creating a warm, honey glow on the deck. Smoke from the galley drifts lazily across the scene, mingling with the salty air. You can almost hear the gentle sway of the ship beneath your feet, a reminder that every barrel, every carefully stored morsel, is a lifeline against the vast, indifferent ocean. Oddly, some pirates label barrels not just for contents, but for morale. Barrels with treats or particularly appetizing salted meats are marked with playful symbols, a small luxury in a harsh world. The combination of practicality, superstition, and occasional humor turns what could be a mundane chore into an art form, a ritualized dance of survival. You step back, taking in the scene, rows of barrels brimming with life-sustaining food, pirates moving with disciplined precision, and the ever-present ocean surrounding the floating fortress. Each barrel is a testament to foresight, ingenuity, and the delicate balance of routine and risk that defines life at sea. In the hands of these seasoned sailors, simple wooden barrels become vaults of sustenance, safety, and survival against the whims of nature. You wander toward the stern of the ship, where the pirates have set up an intricate arrangement of copper stills and boiling pots. Steam rises in gentle curls, mingling with the salty sea breeze. The copper glints in the sunlight, polished and worn from constant use, while coiled pipes carry the distilled liquid into waiting wooden barrels. You notice the faint aroma of minerals and brine that lingers around the apparatus, a pungent reminder of the seawater's source. Historical fact: pirates and sailors of the early modern period often distilled seawater using rudimentary copper stills, removing the harmful salt while retaining vital minerals, a process that could provide potable water for weeks at a time. You watch one pirate pour a barrel of seawater into the still, adjusting the flame beneath it with practiced precision. Every movement is calculated. Too much heat could ruin the batch. Too little could slow the process dangerously. A quirky detail: near the stills, a parrot squawks and pecks at a small piece of cloth hanging from a line. The crew claims it's a good luck charm, trained to detect bad water by refusing to drink from compromised barrels. A ritual more playful than practical, yet embraced with wide-eyed seriousness. Scholars still argue whether such distillation methods were widespread among pirates or mostly confined to well-funded privateers. Regardless, the practice demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of chemistry applied pragmatically in the harshest of environments. You watch the distilled water dripping into a barrel, clear and glimmering like liquid crystal. Each drop a precious resource in the vast blue expanse around you. The pirates rotate between barrels of fresh distilled water and the remaining brine, pouring off the latter to prevent contamination. Each barrel is checked meticulously, tapped and sniffed for any sign of salt contamination or unusual odor. Even minor lapses could result in dehydration, weakness, or worse, scurvy. You lean closer to a barrel and see a faint rainbow sheen on the surface, leftover minerals that will settle out if allowed time. The crew works silently, communicating with gestures and nods, a language honed over countless voyages. One pirate lifts, another barrels it off to the galley, marking it with chalk to indicate that it is safe for drinking. The ritualistic care transforms the simple act of producing fresh water into a ceremonial practice, vital for morale as much as survival. Oddly, the pirates mark some barrels with playful inscriptions: Elixir of Neptune or Sea's Sweet Gift, humorously elevating their essential work to a level of superstition and theater. You watch a crew member bow theatrically before filling his cup, a wink at the parrot perched above. The mix of skill, superstition, and humor underscores the human element in the otherwise mechanical task of water purification. The sun glances off the copper stills, casting warm, gilded reflections on the deck and surrounding barrels. You can hear the faint hiss of boiling water, the occasional clink of metal, and the subtle sway of the ship beneath your feet. It's a rhythm both soothing and essential, a daily meditation on survival and ingenuity. You note that pirates often collected rainwater to supplement distilled supplies, funneling it through canvas and clay filters to remove debris. This layered approach, distillation, filtration, and careful storage, ensured that even months at sea, far from friendly ports, could be endured without succumbing to dehydration or illness. The scene is almost meditative. The alchemy of turning brine into life-giving water, a tangible symbol of mastery over nature's most basic yet unforgiving element. You step back, watching the barrels fill steadily with clear, life-sustaining water. Each barrel, each careful pour, is a small miracle of chemistry, skill, and patience. Around you, the sea stretches endlessly, indifferent and immense. Yet here, aboard this swaying ship, humans have wrested control over the essential element that defines life itself. You wander down to the galley area, where the air smells sharply of salt, smoke, and dried herbs. Barrels of salted meat and fish line the walls, stacked high in careful order. Each piece glints faintly under the sun, filtering through the ship's hatches, coated with crystallized salt that preserves it from spoilage. You notice a pirate kneeling beside a large wooden tub, rubbing salt deeply into cuts of cod, pressing it firmly to ensure every surface is saturated. Historical fact: salted and smoked preservation was essential for long sea voyages, allowing crews to survive months without fresh provisions, while also deterring bacterial growth in times before refrigeration. You peer into a smaller barrel where herring has been packed with layers of salt and bits of aromatic herbs like juniper and dill, creating an early form of flavoring as well as preservation. Quirky detail: nearby, a tiny mouse scurries across the deck, seemingly unbothered by the bustle, nibbling on a dropped fragment of bread. Pirates jokingly call it the ship's taster, an uninvited but tolerated participant in their food rituals. Scholars still argue whether certain preservation methods, like heavy salting versus smoking, were regional innovations or standardized across pirate crews. Regardless, you can see the care taken to maintain each barrel. The act is methodical and ritualized. The crew works in synchronized rhythm. One man lifts a smoked leg of pork, inspecting it for dryness, while another uses a wooden spatula to adjust the layers in the barrel below. Every movement is precise. Even minor mistakes could mean the difference between a meal and months of hunger. The barrels are marked with chalk symbols, indicating their contents and age, ensuring that nothing is forgotten or used prematurely. You watch a pirate dip a piece of salted beef into a small pot of brine, tasting it with a contemplative frown before nodding in approval. The ritual extends beyond mere sustenance. It's a ceremonial act, a demonstration of skill and survival instinct. Around him, barrels of herring, pork, and dried venison gleam under gilded sunlight, their surfaces shimmering with crystallized salt like tiny treasure chests of nourishment. Oddly, the pirates chant softly as they work, a combination of song and counting, ensuring the rhythm of their labor remains steady. It's both practical and meditative, a mental mechanism to endure the monotony and strain of long voyages. You notice how even minor disputes are settled quietly with gestures or nods. Maintaining calm around food is crucial to survival. You glance at the herbs sprinkled in the barrels: juniper, bay leaves, and cloves, whose aromatic properties mask odors and, surprisingly, slow spoilage. Pirates learned through trial and error, noting which spices and combinations worked best. The act of layering salt and herbs becomes almost an art form, each barrel a miniature experiment in chemistry and preservation. Above, the rigging sways gently with the ocean breeze, the soft creak of ropes punctuating the quiet diligence below deck. You see water dripping from the deck above, a reminder that life at sea is constantly negotiating between abundance and scarcity. The crew works tirelessly, checking, tasting, adjusting, ensuring that every bite of meat or fish will last until the next port or the next rescue of opportunity. The ritual of preservation transforms mundane labor into an essential survival practice. Each barrel, each layer of salt, each aromatic sprig represents mastery over time and decay. You step back and watch the crew, a mixture of pragmatism indifferent to human effort. Yet here aboard this ship, humans wrest control over the basic necessity of life, food that will endure even the harshest months afloat. You wander toward a shadowed corner of the hold where baskets and crates of fruits and vegetables are stored with meticulous care. Apples, pears, and turnips sit snugly in layers of straw, their colors muted but still vibrant against the brown of the wicker. The smell is faintly sweet, mingling with the ever-present brine and tar of the ship's hull. A pirate carefully inspects each fruit, turning it in his hands, listening for hollow sounds or soft spots, as if the ship itself whispers secrets about which produce will endure. Historical fact: early modern sailors discovered that storing fruits and vegetables with straw or sawdust minimized bruising and prolonged freshness during extended voyages, a practice crucial for preventing scurvy and nutrient deficiencies. You notice that the turnips are racked individually in thin layers of straw, almost like tiny bundles of treasure, each preserved for the unpredictable length of the journey. Quirky detail: one sailor hums a tune while gently rolling an apple against the straw, claiming it sings back if treated kindly, a superstition that seems to relax him more than the fruit. The act becomes almost ritualistic, blending practicality with morale-boosting theatrics. Scholars still argue whether pirates universally adopted such storage techniques, or if some captains were more experimental, varying by season and region. You observe that the baskets are carefully labeled with chalk symbols, an early system of inventory to prevent accidental consumption of the freshest items too soon. You see a crew member brushing off a layer of damp straw, checking for mold, while another moves crates closer to the vent, where cool sea air helps maintain a stable temperature. This attention to environmental factors illustrates their intuitive understanding of preservation without modern technology. The pirates rotate the baskets regularly, lifting each with care, sometimes passing them between decks. Even minor bumps or drops are avoided, as a bruised apple could spoil surrounding fruit. You notice tiny, handwritten notations on the crate lids, recording which batch came aboard and when. A log system of survival knowledge passed down from prior voyages. Some fruits are soaked briefly in a salty brine or a mild vinegar solution before stowing, a technique meant to delay decay and deter insects. Around you, small jars of herbs and oils are tucked alongside the baskets. Bay leaves, cloves, and other aromatic substances serve dual purposes: flavoring and naturey preservation. The combination of careful handling, straw insulation, and herbal additives creates a system of remarkable efficiency for keeping perishables viable in the harsh marine environment. Above, sunlight filters through the deck planks, dancing across the straw and casting elongated shadows of the sailors. Each movement, checking, rotating, inspecting, is deliberate, a testament to the priority placed on the longevity of provisions. Even the act of tasting is calculated, a small bite taken by one sailor ensures the batch is safe, and the crew laughs softly when a particularly tart apple earns exaggerated grimaces. The air is alive with quiet diligence. Every basket, crate, and jar represents a balance between life and scarcity, a dance with time itself. You see how each pirate has internalized the rhythm of preservation, moving with almost meditative precision to maintain this fragile bounty. Outside, the endless sea rolls steadily, indifferent to human toil. Yet aboard this vessel, the pirates assert control over decay, turning necessity into where the ship's makeshift smokehouse hums with activity. Long slabs of salted pork and beef hang from wooden beams, swaying gently with the rhythm of the ship, each piece coated in layers of coarse salt and sometimes smeared with a hint of honey to encourage a protective crust. Pirates in indigo and russet tunics tend to smoke, fanning the embers and checking for flare-ups, their faces half lit by the golden glow of the coals. Historical fact. Smoking and boiling were essential preservation methods in the Age of Sail. Salted meat exposed to smoke could remain edible for months, a cornerstone of a pirate's ability to survive long voyages without fresh supplies. You notice that the meat is hung at staggered heights, ensuring even exposure to the smoke while preventing dripping onto pieces below. A careful orchestration of space and heat. Quirky detail. One pirate whispers to a hanging hunk of bacon, "Do not betray us to the worms." A superstition mixed with humor, reflecting the blend of superstition and routine that marks life at sea. The ritual almost feels ceremonial, each swipe of smoke-laden air acting as a blessing over the provisions. Scholars still argue whether pirates universally practice smoking as systematically as Navy cooks, or if improvisation defined the process. Here, you witness a meticulous method akin to terrestrial smokehouses, adapted for the rocking instability of a vessel at sea. You observe small pouches of herbs tucked into the beams, juniper berries, rosemary, and thyme, releasing aromatic oils that subtly flavor and further preserve the meat. Adjacent to the smokehouse, a cauldron simmers over a controlled flame. Bones, offal, and tougher cuts are boiled down into a rich stock, then poured into barrels for long-term storage. The liquid, once cooled, becomes gelatinous, forming a natural seal that keeps air and microbes at bay. You see a sailor tasting the broth cautiously, nodding approvingly, then marking the barrel with a chalk symbol indicating readiness. Above, seagulls cry as sunlight glints off the brass fixtures of the rigging, highlighting the salt crystals clinging to the ropes and deck. The smoke curls upward in delicate spirals, mingling with sea mist, creating a hazy, almost sacred ambiance. Even the rhythm of fanning the fire seems synchronized with the gentle rocking of the ship, a cooperative dance with gravity and sea motion. Pirates carefully turn each slab every few hours, ensuring that no portion is overexposed or undersmoked. The heat of the embers is monitored with practiced hands, and coals are occasionally transferred with iron tongs, balancing the intensity of the small children or apprentices observe quietly, learning the exact gestures needed to preserve life-sustaining food at sea. In this microcosm of smoke, salt, and heat, you perceive a striking combination of ingenuity, tradition, and ritual. What may appear chaotic to the outsider is, in fact, a disciplined choreography. each action calculated to extend the lifespan of the meat, maximizing the chances of survival during weeks, even months adrift. You realize that the pirates' mastery over preservation transforms basic sustenance into a finely tuned science, a lifeline intertwined with their daily existence and the endless, indifferent sea surrounding them. You step toward the bow, where barrels of freshly caught fish glisten under a pale morning sun, their scales reflecting hues of silver, teal, and russet from the clothing of nearby sailors. Each fish is carefully layered with coarse salt, a thick, glimmering bed separating one from the next. Preventing direct contact and discouraging microbial growth, the barrels are lined with leaves, oak, or sometimes cabbage, adding a faint herbal aroma and acting as natural barriers against excess moisture. Historical fact: salting fish was one of the oldest and most reliable methods of preservation at sea, practiced across maritime cultures for centuries. Even small coastal villages relied on salt-packed cod or herring for survival, a tradition pirates adapted and perfected for long voyages. You notice that the pirates tilt the barrels slightly to allow brine to collect at the bottom, ensuring consistent coverage and preventing the top layers from drying too rapidly. Quirky detail. One sailor hums a ditty while pressing fish into the salt, joking that the cod sings better when happy, blending superstition with work, a rhythm that keeps spirits high during laborious tasks. The ritual almost becomes meditative. Each placement of a fish is deliberate, a small but crucial act in the broader battle against decay. Scholars still argue whether all pirate crews possessed such methodical organization, or if improvisation dominated most seafaring preservation practices. Here, you witness precision and care rivaling land-based smokehouses, adapted for the unstable platform of a wooden vessel. You notice small pouches of aromatic herbs tucked between layers, adding subtle flavors while warding off pests. Nearby, a group tends a series of smaller barrels containing salted herring in brine. The liquid gleams under the sun, and a slight smell of fermenting fish wafts gently through the air, a smell you've grown accustomed to and that signals readiness for storage or immediate consumption. Sailors occasionally taste the brine cautiously. Ropes creak under the wind. Gulls dive and circle, and the ship rocks gently. A constant reminder of the sea's influence. Each action of handling fish, tilting barrels, layering, checking brine, is done with an awareness of the ship's sway. A subtle dance between human skill and maritime physics. At the stern, an apprentice carefully records the day's catch, noting how many barrels have been salted, how long each batch has rested, and which are ready for smoking. Even minor errors could spoil weeks of careful preparation, underscoring the high stakes of maritime preservation. You watch as seasoned sailors demonstrate patience and skill, turning what might seem like a menial chore into an exacting science, essential for life and morale during long, isolated voyages. Finally, you realize that in the interplay of salt, brine, and human diligence, pirates each barrel is a testament to centuries of maritime knowledge adapted to the demands of piracy, where survival depends as much on ingenuity and ritual as it does on courage and cunning. The sun glints off the barrel's briny surface, casting small golden reflections that mingle with the blue-gray waves, a quiet, almost magical proof of human mastery over nature. You step closer to the center of the deck, where a small contraption catches your eye. A distillation apparatus rigged from copper tubing, wooden barrels, and a crude yet clever arrangement of heat and condensation. Steam rises from a kettle heated over a controlled flame, curling and condensing along the angled metal, dripping into a waiting container below. A continuous cycle producing faintly warm, drinkable water. The smell of salt evaporates as the liquid gathers, leaving a clean scent reminiscent of spring rain. Historical fact: distillation of seawater was a known but challenging process in the early modern period, used sporadically by navies and pirate crews alike. Survival often depended on ingenuity, as fresh water stores could spoil or run dry within days. You notice that the pirates carefully adjust the flame, ensuring it's strong enough to vaporize water, but gentle enough to avoid bursting seams in the wooden structure. A balance of art and science. Quirky detail: one sailor inspects the freshly collected water, tilting the cup to the sun, and claiming that it tastes like the clouds themselves. A bit of humor to break the monotony of long, sun-baked days at sea. Another adds a leaf from a small onboard herb pouch, suggesting that mint enhances flavor while offering mild antiseptic properties. Scholars still argue whether this type of shipboard distillation was widespread among pirates or largely limited to well-equipped captains. What you see here is a blend of improvisation and inherited maritime knowledge. A junior crew member carefully rotates barrels of seawater toward the heat source, ensuring a continuous flow without interruption. Each droplet of condensation is watched with almost religious attention, understanding that every liter represents life preserved. Nearby, a group tends to a separate barrel containing rainwater collected from the ship's sails during the previous storm. It is murky at first, filled with bits of leaves and salt spray, but careful filtering through cloth and sand creates a surprisingly palatable reserve, supplementing the distilled supply. You notice the pirates' routines. Some check taste and temperature. Others clean condensation pipes, and a few simply watch, mesmerized by the rhythmic drip of water into containers. The sun climbs higher, warming the deck, highlighting glints of metal and the glistening liquid. The pirates' faces are streaked with salt and sweat. Yet their movements are deliberate and precise, a dance between patience and necessity. You imagine the countless hours spent refining these processes, trial and error at the mercy of storms, humidity, and limited resources. In this microcosm of ingenuity, survival is distilled as clearly as the water itself. Every adjustment, every careful rotation of a barrel, every drop caught from the salty air becomes a lifeline. You realize that drinking seawater safely requires more than knowledge. It demands respect for nature's limits, creativity, and an almost obsessive attention to detail. Qualities that distinguish mere sailors from those who live and die by the rhythm of the ocean. By mid-morning, several barrels of fresh water are stored under canvas tarps, shielded from sun and contamination, ready for the crew's consumption over the coming days. You take a slow breath, feeling the subtle triumph of human cleverness over the relentless sea. A quiet victory that ensures the ship and everyone aboard remains alive for just a little longer. You wander to the stern, where the unmistakable scent of smoke mingles with the briny tang of the sea. A small, smoking chamber has been rigged from wooden planks, hung with lines of salted meat, pork, mutton, and even dried fish. Thin curls of smoke rise, curling in the salt-laden air, carrying warmth and preserving aroma alike. Each piece sways gently with the ship's motion. And you notice the crew adjusting its height over the smoldering coals, ensuring that the meat is smoked slowly, avoiding both raw centers and bitter overcharring. Historical fact: smoking and salting meat were primary methods of food preservation during the Age of Sail. Pirates and naval crews depended on these techniques to survive months at sea without fresh supplies. The combination of salt and smoke inhibits bacterial growth, and remarkably, some barrels of meat remained edible even after months in harsh maritime conditions. Quirky detail: a pirate named Lars demonstrates his secret touch, tapping a hunk of salted pork and proclaiming it, singing the song of the waves. Nearby, another sailor rolls a herring in more salt than seems humanly possible, muttering that it will taste like the sea kissed by angels once dried. Their banter feels light, almost theatrical, a small reprieve amid the monotony of shipboard life. Scholars still argue whether pirates truly understood the chemical processes behind preservation or simply relied on long-standing tradition and practical observation. Either way, the methods are effective. You notice that barrels are carefully lined with straw and herbs, thyme, rosemary, and occasionally juniper, to add subtle flavors while deterring pests. The pirates move with deliberate choreography. Some tend to the coals, others adjust hanging lines, and a few inspect the integrity of barrels, ensuring no moisture or contamination compromises the stores. The sun's angle shifts, casting long shadows across the deck, painting the hanging meats with gilded highlights. You see a young crew member testing the texture, pressing lightly to check for dryness without carrying fibers. Small rituals accompany this labor, a silent nod when a piece is perfectly cured. The atmosphere is a mix of warmth, smoke, and careful concentration, underscoring that survival at sea is a blend of science, art, and intuition. By late afternoon, the smoke-filled deck is quiet, punctuated by the occasional clink of tools or the soft creak of ropes. The preserved meats and fish glisten faintly, a testament to human ingenuity against the relentless challenges of the ocean. You step back, observing the harmony of fire, salt, intuition, and wind working together to ensure that the crew's meals remain edible, a small but crucial triumph in their ongoing battle against starvation. You wander to the deck's central area, where a network of barrels, tarps, and ropes transforms into an improvised water collection system. Rainwater is captured meticulously, funneled from the canvas coverings, and stored in wide barrels lined with pitch to prevent leaks. Each sailor knows the exact rhythm: when clouds gather, when droplets begin to patter, the crew hustles to ensure no precious water is lost to the wind or waves. You notice the subtle sheen of moisture reflecting the sunlight, almost like liquid gold, and you realize just how valuable every drop is. Historical fact: seawater contains salts and minerals that, if consumed directly in large quantities, can dehydrate a human body. Pirates and sailors therefore relied on rainwater, cisterns, and collected condensation to stay hydrated. Some even devised rudimentary distillation methods using heat and condensation to remove salt, early forms of desalination. Quirky detail: one pirate, a wiry man with a crooked smile, has named his largest rain barrel Poseidon's Gift, insisting that a sprinkle from it brings good luck for catching fish. Others tease him, but no one touches the barrel without his blessing. You watch him tilt a small tin cup, catching droplets as if performing a ritual dance. The droplets glinting like tiny jewels in the afternoon sun. Scholars still argue whether these methods were standardized across all seafaring communities or varied widely depending on region, ship type, and local knowledge. Nevertheless, it is clear that pirates had perfected practical techniques to maximize water collection. The barrels are carefully monitored, with wooden ladles used to draw water for cooking, drinking, and cleaning. You see the crew rotating the stored water. The oldest barrels are used first, preventing stagnation, while fresh rain is always saved for drinking. A curious sight catches your attention. Thin sheets of copper and tin stretched over the deck and slightly heated by the sun condense moisture that is collected via small channels into separate containers. This rudimentary condensation system produces surprisingly clean water, supplementing the rain catchers during dry spells. You marvel at how simple materials, metal sheets, wooden troughs, and rope, can create an effective survival tool. The pirates also add a few sprigs of mint or juniper to the barrels, both for flavor and minor antiseptic benefits. You notice their hands moving with careful precision. A splash of water here, a tilt of the barrel there, all actions rehearsed countless times. Even children aboard are trained to participate, their small fingers skilled at securing tarps or adjusting ropes without spilling a single drop. As the sun dips toward the horizon, the deck glistens with moisture, and the barrels brimming with collected rain stand like silent guardians against dehydration. You feel the delicate balance of survival, the patience, the ingenuity, the rituals that turn ordinary materials into lifelines at sea. Each droplet represents life preserved, a testament to human adaptability, and a subtle but potent reminder of the ocean's indifference to those who fail to prepare. You wander into the shadowed hold of the ship, where barrels of salted meat, dried fish, and pickled vegetables are stacked in precise rows. The air is pungent with brine and vinegar, a smell so strong it makes your nose tingle. But you quickly adapt, realizing it is the smell of survival. Each barrel has been carefully prepared, meat rubbed with salt, fish layered with ashes or herbs, and vegetables submerged in brine to prevent spoilage. You reach out and run a finger along a barrel rim, feeling the coarse texture of coarse-grained salt embedded in the wood, a tactile reassurance that the food inside will last weeks, even months. Historical fact: sailors used salting, pickling, and smoking to preserve food long before refrigeration existed. Salt draws water out of bacterial cells, slowing decay, while pickling in vinegar or brine creates an acidic environment that inhibits microbial growth. Pirates, like all seafarers, depended heavily on these methods to prevent scurvy, starvation, and illness during extended voyages. Quirky detail: one crewman insists that placing a live sprig of rosemary or thyme in the barrels improves the flavor, and he talks to the herbs as if they can hear him. "Grow strong, little ones," he whispers, patting the top of a barrel, and the others chuckle at his eccentricity while secretly admiring his attention to detail. You notice tiny slivers of citrus peel tucked among the preserved meat, a trick to keep the flavors fresh and add trace vitamin C. Scholars still argue whether pirates were more experimental with preservation techniques than naval crews, but it's clear they observed and shared knowledge meticulously. You watch as a younger sailor tastes a small sliver of pickled herring, nods approvingly, and notes the time and temperature on a wooden tally. Each observation informs the next batch, a continuous feedback loop ensuring the ship's larder remains safe to eat. You wander further down the hold, past rows of barrels and crates, and see small nets of dried beans and grains hanging from the beams. The crew rotates them regularly, shaking out moisture and checking for pests. Tiny insects sometimes find their way in, and the pirates have devised clever traps using ash and salt to keep the grains safe. Every corner of the hold is optimized. Hanging bundles prevent contact with the damp floor. Tilted barrels allow brine to circulate, and the air circulation is carefully managed by leaving small gaps in the decking above. A particularly fascinating sight is a series of ceramic pots containing fermented shark, a delicacy and survival food alike. The foul aroma is almost unbearable to newcomers, but you watch experienced pirates handle it confidently, knowing that the strong acids and fermentation prevent spoilage and provide essential nutrients. You glimpse small notes scribbled on the pots, tallying the start dates of fermentation and rotation cycles, a rudimentary lab notebook aboard a ship. The hold itself becomes a microcosm of ingenuity. Each preserved item represents a calculated measure against the chaos of the sea. You sense the rhythm of this environment, the ebb and flow of care, the constant monitoring. The rituals of tasting, smelling, and adjusting. Even in darkness, the crew operates with precision, moving barrels to optimize airflow or adjusting salt concentrations, turning what could be a desperate struggle for food into a managed, almost ceremonial practice. By the time you ascend back to the deck, the twilight filters through the rigging, illuminating the stacked barrels with soft golden hues. You realize that the pirate ship is a floating ecosystem of survival, where water and food are treasured and managed with near religious devotion. Every morsel, every drop is a triumph over the unforgiving ocean. And you carry with you the realization that these seemingly odd habits are essential life-saving measures. You wander onto the deck just as the first stars begin to glimmer in the navy blue sky, feeling the subtle sway of the ship beneath your feet. The evening air carries a tang of salt spray and the earthy scent of dried provisions, a sensory reminder of the delicate balance between survival and chaos at sea. Every pirate on board moves with deliberate purpose, following routines honed over years of voyages. Here, survival is not left to chance. It is ritualized, a daily choreography that spans from sunrise to starlight. Historical fact: pirates and sailors of the Age of Sail relied heavily on routine maintenance of both ship and provisions to prevent scurvy, starvation, and waterborne illnesses. Regular inspections, rotation of food, and treatment of water with methods like boiling or the use of lime were common preventive measures, forming the backbone of life at sea. Quirky detail: one pirate hums an improvised tune as he polishes barrels, swabbing brine-stained vopes with vinegar. His melody shifts according to the type of work. Lighter notes for water checks, somber tones for inspecting salted meat. adding an almost theatrical element to mundane tasks. You watch him dip a ladle into a barrel of water, sniff cautiously, and then take a measured sip, performing a ritual he treats with the gravity of a sacred act. Scholars still argue whether pirates were more experimental with these daily routines than official naval crews. But what you observe is meticulous care. Each sailor has a specific role, while others monitor the hanging beans and grains for signs of moisture or pest activity. The rotation of barrels and crates is almost ceremonial, a blend of practicality and superstition, ensuring that the ship's larder never fails. You wander toward the rigging and notice the nets of dried fruits and herbs that have been meticulously strung up to dry in the evening breeze. Each net is labeled with the date of packing and the type of contents, a handwritten calendar of survival. The crew carefully shakes each bundle daily, preventing mold and maintaining airflow. A simple action repeated with unwavering consistency. A ritual that has likely saved countless lives on long voyages. The water purification routine is equally precise. You watch as a sailor lowers a ceramic container into the collected rainwater, adds a pinch of crushed limestone, and stirs it slowly, explaining to a younger recruit that this prevents bacterial growth while keeping the water palatable. Nearby, another crew member boils a small batch, testing it for clarity and taste, then returns it to a barrel with a satisfied nod. Every sip of water consumed is a calculated decision, not a gamble. You wander past the galley, where preserved meats are portioned out for the evening meal. Evening light glints on gilded surfaces of knives and scoops, and the act of distributing rations is almost ritualistic. Each portion is measured, each barrel checked for spoilage, and every morsel accounted for. The rhythm of these tasks is hypnotic, a comforting cadence against the unpredictable sea. As the night deepens, lanterns swing gently, casting warm, golden pools over the deck. Pirates move in a quiet harmony, tending to ropes, checking barrels, and cataloging water and food supplies. The ship itself feels alive, a floating ecosystem where order is maintained through ritual, observation, and an almost obsessive attention to detail. You realize that these routines, though they might seem tedious or odd to outsiders, are the silent mechanisms that allow life to continue amid the vast, uncaring ocean. Finally, you settle on the rail, feeling the cool wind on your face, listening to the gentle creak of the timbers. You watch the last glimmers of the sun vanish below the horizon and reflect on the ingenuity and discipline required to survive at sea. The daily rituals of maintenance, both for ship and sustenance, form an unbroken chain linking every pirate, past and present, in a shared covenant of survival. Every barrel rotated, every sip of purified water, every dried herb inspected is an act of life preserved, a testament to the human capacity for adaptation and vigilance. As the night settles over the endless waves, you feel a sense of calm descend upon the ship. The lanterns sway gently, casting soft, golden reflections on the glistening water. You hear the distant calls of seabirds settling for rest, and the rhythmic slap of waves against the hull becomes a lullaby. The crew has finished its daily tasks, and the hold hums with the quiet assurance that food is safe, water is pure, and life endures. You wander along the deck in your mind, tracing the meticulous arrangements of barrels, nets, and provisions. Each item has its place, a silent testament to discipline and survival. The wind carries the mingled scents of brine, herbs, and dried meats, a sensory cocoon wrapping you in the story of ingenuity at sea. Even the smallest details, the sprig of rosemary tucked among salted herring, the careful rotation of barrels, the flicker of candlelight on a ladle, become comforting patterns in the rhythm of life. The stars overhead twinkle faintly, as if approving the careful balance maintained by generations of sailors. You imagine the gentle rocking of the ship, the quiet murmur of the sea, and the soft shuffle of feet checking the hold one last time before sleep. In this moment, survival feels intimate, almost tender, a collaboration between human ingenuity and nature's demands. You feel a sense of gratitude for these unassuming rituals, realizing that they are the invisible threads keeping life afloat in the vast ocean. Let your mind drift along with the ship, letting the cool breeze and soft amber lantern glow soothe you. Every wave, every creak of wood, every whisper of wind reminds you that even in the harshest environments, order, care, and attention can create a sanctuary. Close your eyes, listen to the lull of the sea, and feel the steady heartbeat of a ship alive with purpose. Sleep finds you gently, wrapped in the quiet magic of survival, comforted by the knowledge that ingenuity, routine, and care can conquer even the most relentless ocean. End of script. Sweet dreams.